In the quiet solitude of the early morning, before the world has fully stirred and the noise of the day begins to encroach upon the senses, there exists a profound opportunity for biological transformation that requires nothing more than water and 30 seconds of courage. For the aging body, specifically for those of us navigating the complex waters of our 60s, 70s, and beyond, the search for vitality often leads to complex pharmaceutical interventions or expensive therapies. Yet we frequently overlook a primordial mechanism that is hardwired into our genetic architecture. We are discussing the deliberate application of cold water, a practice often referred to as cold hydrotherapy, and specifically the regimen of ending one's daily shower with 30 seconds of cold exposure. While the immediate reaction to the suggestion of cold water is often one of hesitation or instinctual recoil, particularly as we age and our sensitivity to temperature shifts increases, the science underlying this practice reveals it to be one of the most potent, non-invasive tools for systemic rejuvenation available to us. To understand why a mere half-minute of cold water can be revolutionary for senior health, we must first move beyond the sensation of discomfort and journey into the microscopic landscape of human physiology, exploring how the nervous system and the cardiovascular network respond to what scientists call hormetic stress. It is essential to understand that not all stress is detrimental to the human organism. For while chronic psychological stress wears down our defenses, short bursts of acute physical stress trigger a cascade of adaptive responses that strengthen the system, a biological principle known as hormesis. When the warm water is turned off and the cold water hits the skin, the body does not perceive this merely as a change in temperature, but as a distinct environmental signal that demands immediate preservation of core thermal stability. In that very first second, a signal travels from the millions of thermoreceptors in the skin directly to the hypothalamus in the brain. Bypassing our conscious thought processes, this is the ancient brain awakening. For a senior individual whose nervous system may have gradually become accustomed to a sedentary or temperature-controlled comfort zone, this signal is like a spark plug firing in a dormant engine. The brain immediately commands the release of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter and hormone that is fundamental to focus, attention, and the regulation of inflammation. Unlike the jittery, anxious energy one might get from consuming too much caffeine, the alertness derived from this cold shock is clear, grounded, and chemically distinct. This is the body waking up not just metaphorically, but cellularly. However, the most critical physiological event that occurs during these 30 seconds, and the one that holds the most promise for the aging cardiovascular system, is the phenomenon of vasoconstriction followed by reactive vasodilation. Imagine the vast network of blood vessels within your body, a system that, if laid out end to end, would wrap around the earth twice. As we age, these vessels, particularly the smaller capillaries and the peripheral arteries, tend to lose their elasticity, becoming stiffer and less responsive, a condition that contributes to hypertension and poor circulation. When the cold water impacts the body, the autonomic nervous system instinctively triggers vasoconstriction, commanding the blood vessels in the extremities, the arms, legs, and skin to tighten and clamp down. This is a survival mechanism intended to shunt blood away from the surface, where it might cool down, redirecting it toward the vital organs in the core, the heart, the lungs, and the brain. This creates a surge of freshly oxygenated blood moving toward your vital centers, protecting them and ensuring they are nourished. It is a moment of intense internal pressure, but controlled pressure, comparable to squeezing a sponge to expel the old stagnant fluids. This process is essentially a workout for your arteries/veins, a form of vascular gymnastics that requires no weights and no treadmill. For an older adult who may struggle with mobility or who cannot engage in high-intensity cardiovascular exercise, serene. This 30-second window provides a unique stimulus to the smooth muscles lining the blood vessels. When the cold exposure ends and you step out of the shower into the ambient air or dry off with a warm towel, the reverse process occurs. The blood vessels dilate, opening up wider than before to allow blood to rush back into the extremities. This alternating constriction and dilation helps to strip away the buildup of metabolic waste products that can accumulate in the tissues and restores elasticity to the vascular walls. Over time, consistent practice of this morning ritual can lead to a measurable improvement in circulation. We often see seniors suffering from cold hands and feet or sluggish wound healing, symptoms of a circulatory system that has lost its vigor. By challenging the vessels daily, we are effectively training them to react, to open and close efficiently, thereby reducing the workload on the heart in the long run. It is a paradox that by briefly subjecting the body to the stress of cold, we reduce the chronic stress on the cardiovascular system for the rest of the day. Furthermore, we must address the interaction between cold therapy and the immune system, particularly regarding the reduction of systemic inflammation, which is arguably the silent driver of most age-related diseases. Inflammation is the body's immune response to injury or infection, but in the aging body, this switch often gets stuck in the on position, leading to chronic low-grade inflammation that contributes to arthritis, diabetes, and neurodegeneration. The shock of cold water stimulates the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the autonomic nervous system, which interfaces with the heart, lungs, and digestive tract. Stimulation of the vagus nerve is scientifically linked to the downregulation of inflammatory cytokines. In simpler terms, the cold water tells the immune system to stand down and stop attacking healthy tissue. For a senior waking up with stiff joints or the heavy fog of lethargy, this is crucial. The cold water acts as a system reset. The flood of norepinephrine mentioned earlier also possesses potent anti-inflammatory properties. Therefore, that 30-second shiver is not just a sensation of cold. It is a medicinal dose of your body's own anti-inflammatory chemistry being released into the bloodstream. It is also vital to consider the psychological component of this physiological reaction, as the mind and body are inextricably linked, especially in the context of aging, where the fear of frailty can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Taking a cold shower is an act of volition. It is a choice to step out of comfort and into a brief challenge. This builds mental resilience, or grit. When an older adult successfully navigates this 30-second challenge, the brain releases dopamine, the molecule of reward and motivation. This is not the cheap dopamine of watching television or eating sugar. This is the durable dopamine of achievement. This biochemical shift can lift the mood for hours, combating the subtle depression or apathy that can sometimes accompany the aging process. You start the day with a victory. You have commanded your body to endure, and it has responded with vigor. This reinforces a psychological narrative of strength rather than weakness, of capability rather than fragility. However, we must approach this with the wisdom that comes with age, understanding that shock must be managed carefully. For those with pre-existing heart conditions or unmanaged high blood pressure, the sudden immersion in freezing water can be dangerous if approached recklessly, which is why the protocol emphasizes a gradual 30 seconds at the end of a warm shower rather than jumping straight into an ice bath. This transitional method allows the heart rate to elevate moderately rather than erratically. We are looking for stimulation, not devastation. The goal is to gently prod the body's homeostatic mechanisms to perform better, to remind the biological systems that they are still required to adapt and react. In the vast complexity of human biology, we often find that the most effective solutions are the simplest ones that align with our evolutionary history. Our ancestors did not have heated water. Their bodies were conditioned to handle thermal variance. By reintroducing this variance, we are dusting off ancient genetic pathways that promote longevity. As we delve deeper into the specific benefits in the following sections, keep in mind this foundational understanding. The cold is not an enemy to be feared, but a coach to be respected. It forces the blood to move, the nerves to fire, and the brain to focus. In the context of the first major benefit which we have touched upon, circulatory health, it is important to visualize the blood as the river of life. In traditional Chinese medicine and other ancient modalities, stagnation is the root of disease. Cold water therapy is the antithesis of stagnation. It creates a dynamic flow, flushing out the organs and refreshing the periphery. For the senior demographic, maintaining this flow is synonymous with maintaining independence. Good circulation means better balance, sharper cognition, and more energy for daily tasks. When we commit to this 30-second ritual, we are essentially committing to a daily maintenance check of our body's most critical infrastructure. The mechanism of hardening represents another layer of this physiological awakening. In medical anthropology, there is a concept known as hardening or conditioning the body against the elements. Older generations often speak of resilience, and biologically, this is exactly what cold water cultivates. By regularly exposing the skin to cold, we increase the density of mitochondria in our adipose tissue, specifically stimulating the production of brown fat. Unlike white fat, which stores calories, brown fat burns energy to generate heat. Infants are born with high levels of brown fat to keep them warm, but we lose it as we age. Cold therapy can recruit and reactivate these brown fat deposits. This is metabolically significant for seniors because brown fat is active tissue that helps regulate blood sugar and improves metabolic health. Thus, the cold shower is not merely affecting the surface of the skin, it is altering the metabolic furnace within the body, encouraging it to burn brighter and more efficiently, countering the metabolic slowdown that is often accepted as an inevitable part of aging. In summary of this introductory exploration, before we move to the specific impacts on immunity and mental clarity in the subsequent parts, we must recognize the cold shower as a holistic intervention. It integrates the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, and the metabolic system in a synchronized dance of adaptation. It is accessible, requiring no equipment, and it respects the time constraints of modern life. For the senior seeking to reclaim a sense of vitality, the water offers a daily baptism of renewal. It washes away the grogginess of sleep and replaces it with a vibrance that comes from within. It turns the passive act of bathing into an active therapeutic session. As we transition to understanding how this practice fortifies the body's shield against illness, remember that the initial gasp of cold is simply the sound of your body remembering its own strength. Having established the profound impact of cold hydrotherapy on the cardiovascular highways of the body, we must now turn our gaze inward to the passengers traveling upon those highways. The immune cells and the structural integrity of the vessel itself, our bones, joints, and muscles. If circulation is the logistics network of the human body, then the immune system is its standing army. And for the aging individual, the readiness of this army is often the difference between a minor ailment and a major health crisis. We live in an era where the term immunity is frequently tossed around in advertisements for vitamins and supplements, yet nature has provided us with a mechanism to potentiate our defense systems that is far more direct than any pill. When we subject the body to the controlled stress of cold water for 30 seconds, we are essentially sounding a drill siren for our biological defenses. This is not merely about preventing the common cold, it is about reversing a phenomenon known as immunosenescence, the gradual deterioration of the immune system brought on by natural advancement in age. As we grow older, our body's ability to produce naive T cells diminishes, and our response to new pathogens slows down. The cold water intervention acts as a potent stimulus to counteract this decline, engaging pathways that have evolved over millions of years to keep us alive in harsh environments. Scientific studies conducted on winter swimmers and practitioners of cold immersion have consistently shown a remarkable physiological adaptation. An increase in the count of white blood cells, specifically leukocytes, monocytes, astrocytes, and granulocytes. These are the frontline soldiers of our immune system. But why does cold water trigger this proliferation? The answer lies in the body's reaction to the perceived threat of hypothermia. Even though 30 seconds is safe and brief, the body treats the sudden drop in skin temperature as a critical event. In response, it mobilizes its forces. The lymphatic system, which runs parallel to our blood vessels and is responsible for removing waste and transporting infection-fighting white blood cells, does not have a central pump like the heart. It relies entirely on muscle contraction and movement to circulate its fluid. The involuntary shudder, the deep gasps for air, and the tensing of muscles that occur when cold water hits the skin act as a powerful mechanical pump for the lymphatic system. This forces stagnant lymph fluid to move, flushing out toxins and cellular debris that may have settled in the tissues, effectively unclogging the body's sewage treatment plant. For a senior who may lead a more sedentary lifestyle, this lymphatic activation is essential for preventing the accumulation of inflammatory waste products. Beyond the mere movement of fluids, the biochemical alteration within the blood is profound. There is compelling evidence suggesting that regular cold exposure increases the levels of glutathione in the body. Glutathione is often referred to as the master antioxidant. It is crucial for neutralizing free radicals, unstable atoms that damage cells and contribute to aging and disease. As we age, our natural production of glutathione depletes, leaving us more vulnerable to oxidative stress. By engaging in this daily cold therapy, we are essentially instructing our cells to ramp up the production of this protective molecule. It is a form of cellular armor. When you combine the increased circulation we discussed previously with a higher concentration of immune cells and antioxidants, you create a physiological environment that is hostile to infection. This is why many adherents of this practice report a drastic reduction in the frequency and severity of seasonal flus and respiratory infections. For the elderly, where a simple flu can escalate into pneumonia, this bolstered resilience is not just a benefit. It is a vital protective strategy. Moving from the microscopic war against pathogens to the macroscopic reality of daily living, we encounter perhaps the most pervasive complaint among the senior population: pain. Whether it is the dull ache of osteoarthritis, the sharp twinge of an old injury, or the general stiffness that greets us in the morning, chronic pain is a constant companion for many. Here, the 30-second cold shower emerges as a powerful non-pharmacological analgesic. We are all familiar with the concept of putting an ice pack on a swollen ankle to reduce pain and swelling. The cold shower is, in essence, a systemic ice pack for the entire body. When the cold water envelops the skin, it has an immediate numbing effect on the nerve endings. This is not just a suppression of sensation, it is a physiological interruption of the pain signal. According to the gate control theory of pain, the spinal cord contains a neurological gate that either blocks pain signals or allows them to pass on to the brain. The sensation of intense cold travels on faster, thicker nerve fibers than the slow, throbbing signals of chronic pain. By flooding the nervous system with cold information, we effectively close the gate to the pain signals, providing temporary but significant relief. However, the relief is not merely a distraction, it is chemical. The shock of the cold stimulates the brain to release a flood of beta endorphins. These are the body's natural painkillers, structurally similar to morphine, but produced endogenously without the risk of addiction or side effects. This rush of endorphins provides a sense of well-being and analgesia that can last for hours after the shower is finished. For a senior suffering from joint inflammation, this morning release can mean the difference between starting the day with a grimace or a smile. It facilitates movement, and movement is the key to joint health. Synovial fluid, the lubricant in our joints, requires movement to circulate and nourish the cartilage. By reducing the pain threshold early in the morning, the cold shower encourages the individual to move more freely, thereby creating a virtuous cycle of mobility. The stiffness that characterizes the morning body is largely due to inflammation that has pooled during the night. The cold water, through its vasoconstrictive action, helps to squeeze out this edema, reducing the swelling in the knees, hips, and hands. It creates a feeling of lightness, stripping away the heavy, leaden sensation that often accompanies inflammatory conditions. We must also consider the role of the cold in managing systemic inflammation, which is the root cause of rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune conditions often found in the elderly. We touched upon the vagus nerve in the first part, but its relevance here cannot be overstated. High vagal tone is associated with lower levels of inflammation. By consistently stimulating the vagus nerve with cold water, we are teaching the body to dampen the inflammatory fires that rage within the joints. This is a long-term investment. While the analgesic effect of endorphins is immediate, the anti-inflammatory effect is cumulative. Over weeks and months of practice, the baseline level of inflammation in the body decreases. Seniors often report that they feel less rusty, that their range of motion improves, and that they are less dependent on over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medications, which can have detrimental effects on the stomach and kidneys when used chronically. It is a gentle, natural way to reclaim the physical freedom that pain attempts to steal. Furthermore, there is a connection between this practice and muscle preservation. Sarcopenia, or muscle loss, is a natural part of aging, but it is accelerated by inactivity. When we are in pain, we do not move. When we do not move, we lose muscle. When we lose muscle, our joints become less supported, leading to more pain. The cold shower intervenes in this cycle not only by reducing pain, but by aiding in muscle recovery. Even for seniors who engage in light exercise like walking or gardening, muscle soreness can be a deterrent to consistency. The cold water accelerates the recovery process by flushing out lactic acid and metabolic waste from the muscle tissues. It creates a sensation of invigoration in the musculature, making the body feel tighter and more responsive. This is crucial for maintaining the strength required for balance and fall prevention. When the legs feel fresh and the joints feel capable, confidence in movement is restored. It is interesting to note the interplay between the immune system and the perception of pain. When we are sick or run down, our sensitivity to pain increases. The body becomes tender, urging us to rest. By bolstering the immune system through the mechanisms of increased leukocyte production and improved lymphatic drainage, we indirectly improve our pain tolerance. A healthy body handles discomfort better than a sickly one. The 30-second ritual creates a state of high vitality where the background noise of aches and pains is turned down. It allows the senior individual to focus on the external world, their hobbies, their grandchildren, their community, rather than being constantly drawn inward by the demands of a suffering body. This shift in focus is part of the holistic healing potential of hydrotherapy. It liberates the mind from the prison of physical discomfort. Moreover, the psychological aspect of pain management via cold therapy deserves elaboration. Chronic pain often leads to a sense of helplessness, a feeling that one is at the mercy of their body. The act of turning the handle to cold is an act of taking control. It is a proactive measure. The immediate feedback, the rush, the alertness, the tingling skin provides tangible proof that the body is responsive and alive. This reframing is powerful. Instead of waking up and waiting to see how bad the pain will be today, the individual wakes up and does something that actively changes their physiological state. This empowerment is a critical component of the placebo effect, which is real and powerful in its own right. But here it is backed by the hard physiology of neurochemistry and vascular mechanics. The cold water is a daily declaration that the body is still capable of intense sensation and rapid adaptation, countering the narrative of slow decline. As we deepen our understanding of this practice, we see that the benefits are not isolated silos, but an interconnected web. The improved circulation feeds the immune cells reduce inflammation, reduced inflammation eases pain, eased pain promotes movement, movement further improves circulation. It is a positive feedback loop initiated by a simple thermal trigger. For the aging adult, establishing this loop is perhaps the most effective strategy for maintaining quality of life. We are not trying to turn back the clock to age 20. We are trying to ensure that age 70 or 80 is lived with the highest possible functionality. The cold water strips away the lethargy and the stiffness, revealing the durable core of the individual underneath. In this section, we have traversed the internal landscape of defense and comfort. We have seen how the cold acts as a commander rallying the immune troops and as a soothing balm for the weary joints. It is a duality of stimulation and sedation, stimulating the protectors and sedating the pain receptors. This balance is unique to cold therapy. Heat can soothe, but it does not energize the same way. Exercise can energize, but it can sometimes aggravate pain before relieving it. The cold shower offers a unique middle ground, a low-impact, high-reward intervention that fits seamlessly into the daily hygiene routine. As we prepare to move into the final part of our exploration, which will delve into the impact on mental health, depression, and cognitive longevity, let us carry with us the image of the body as a fortified castle walls, strengthened by vascular health, defended by a vigilant immune army, and structurally sound, free from the crumbling decay of chronic inflammation. The water is the moat that protects this castle, keeping it vibrant and secure against the sieges of time. We have explored the vessel of the body, observing how cold water revitalizes the rivers of the blood and strengthens the walls of our immune fortress. Now we must ascend to the control tower, the human brain. For the aging individual, the preservation of cognitive function and emotional stability is often the paramount concern, surpassing even physical agility. The specter of cognitive decline, the creeping fog of forgetfulness, and the heavy blanket of geriatric depression are formidable adversaries. Yet it is here, in the intricate wiring of the mind, that the 30-second cold shower delivers perhaps its most miraculous payload. We are delving into the neuroscience of resilience, exploring how a brief thermal shock can act as a reset button for the aging brain, washing away the chemical debris of anxiety and reigniting the neural pathways of focus and joy. To understand this, we must look at the brain not as a static computer, but as a dynamic biological landscape that thrives on specific chemical signals. Signals that the cold water provides in abundance. The centerpiece of this neurological reaction is a small bluish part of the brainstem called the locus coeruleus. Despite its diminutive size, it is the principal site for the synthesis of norepinephrine, noradrenaline in the brain. As we age, the functionality of the locus coeruleus can diminish, leading to a reduction in our natural drive, focus, and mood stability. This decline is often linked to the apathy and senior moments that many accept as inevitable. However, the shock of cold water is one of the most consistent and powerful natural activators of this region. When the cold hits the skin, the sensory overload forces the locus coeruleus to fire rapidly, flooding the brain with norepinephrine. This neurotransmitter is responsible for vigilance, attention, and the regulation of mood. Studies have shown that cold exposure can increase plasma norepinephrine concentrations by up to 500%. This is not a subtle shift, it is a tidal wave of neurochemistry. For a senior feeling the grayness of a low mood or the lack of motivation to start the day, this chemical surge acts as a natural antidepressant. It lifts the veil of lethargy almost instantly, replacing it with a state of clear, calm alertness. It is comparable to the effects of certain pharmaceutical antidepressants which aim to increase these same chemicals, but here the mechanism is entirely endogenous, triggered by the environment rather than a pill. Furthermore, we must address the silent epidemic of depression and anxiety among the elderly. Social isolation, the loss of loved ones, and the limitations of a changing body can lead to a chronic state of low-level depression. There is a compelling hypothesis in medical science equating the cold shower to a mild, non-invasive form of electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. While ECT uses electrical currents to induce a seizure and reset brain chemistry for severe depression, the cold shower uses a massive influx of sensory data from the peripheral nerve endings to jolt the brain into a reset state without the trauma. The overwhelming sensation of the cold occupies the brain's processing power so completely that it forces a cessation of ruminative thought patterns. You cannot worry about the past or fear the future when you are under the cold stream. You are forced into the absolute present moment. This is mindfulness in its most visceral form. For those trapped in cycles of negative thinking, this 30-second break offers a daily window of relief. A moment where the noise stops and the mind becomes quiet and focused. This daily respite can be a foundational block for building better mental health over time. Beyond mood, there is the critical issue of neuroprotection and the prevention of degenerative conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's. While research is still unfolding, there is exciting evidence regarding cold shock proteins, specifically one known as RBM3. These proteins are produced by the body in response to cold stress and have been observed in animal models to regenerate synapses, the connections between brain neurons that had been lost to degeneration. In the aging brain, the loss of these synaptic connections is what leads to memory loss and cognitive decline. The presence of cold shock proteins appears to offer a protective shield, preserving the neural network and even encouraging neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and form new connections. By exposing ourselves to cold daily, we may be triggering this ancient repair mechanism, essentially telling the brain that it needs to remain sharp and adaptable to survive. It is a proactive strategy to keep the lights on in the library of the mind, ensuring that access to memories and skills remains clear. Then there is the psychological architecture of willpower. We often think of willpower as a trait we are born with, but it is actually a resource that acts like a muscle. It can be trained or it can atrophy. For many seniors, the sphere of control shrinks as they age. They may feel they have less control over their health, their environment, or their mobility. The act of voluntarily turning the shower handle to cold is a profound exercise of agency. It involves a concept neuroscientists call limbic friction. The limbic system, the emotional survival brain, screams, "No, it's cold, stay comfortable." While the prefrontal cortex, the rational executive brain, says, "I choose to do this because it is good for me." Every morning that you override that limbic resistance, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex. You are proving to yourself that you are the master of your impulses, not a slave to comfort. This creates a top-down control mechanism that spills over into other areas of life. If you can handle this cold water, you can handle the difficult phone call, the complex paperwork, or the physical therapy exercises. It builds a stoic resilience. You start the day with a hard-won victory, and that sense of achievement colors the rest of your interactions. You walk a little taller, not just because your blood is flowing, but because you know you have conquered yourself. This practice also restores a sense of ritual and rhythm to the day. Structure is vital for mental health in retirement. The cold shower provides a definitive start signal. It separates the grogginess of sleep from the activity of the day with a sharp, clear demarcation. It is a ceremony of awakening. In a life stage where days can sometimes blur together, having this sharp, invigorating anchor point helps maintain a circadian rhythm. It tells the body, the day has begun and we are engaging with it fully. This regulation of biological rhythms extends to sleep quality as well. By spiking alertness early in the day, we help calibrate the cortisol awakening response, which in turn helps regulate the release of melatonin later in the evening. Surprisingly, the stress of the cold in the morning can lead to deeper, more restorative sleep at night, as the body seeks to recover and balance itself. Now, having traversed the landscape of the heart, the immune system, and the mind, we must address the practical how-to for the senior beginner. We are not advocating for recklessness. The goal is therapy, not torture. The protocol is simple but precise. Begin your shower with warm water as usual. Wash your hair, soap your body, and enjoy the warmth. This dilates the blood vessels and relaxes the muscles. Then, step back or turn the water away for a moment. Take a deep breath. Turn the temperature dial down. It does not need to be the coldest possible setting immediately. Cool is a good start, progressing to cold over weeks. Step back under the stream. The initial shock will cause a gasp reflex, a sharp intake of air. This is normal. Your goal is to control your exhale. Focus on breathing out slowly and steadily. This calms the autonomic nervous system. Let the water hit your shoulders, your chest, and the back of your neck. Count slowly to 30. Do not grit your teeth and suffer. Try to relax into the sensation. Accept the cold. After 30 seconds, turn the water off. Do not switch back to hot. Step out and towel off vigorously. The feeling of warmth that blooms from within the after-drop recovery is where the magic happens. Your skin will turn pink, your eyes will widen, and you will feel a distinctive hum of energy. For those with specific health conditions, particularly uncontrolled high blood pressure or a history of heart arrhythmia, consultation with a physician is mandatory before starting. However, for the vast majority, this practice is safe and self-regulating. The body is far more robust than we give it credit for. We have spent decades wrapping ourselves in climate-controlled, comfort-heated cars, heated homes, warm clothes. And while comfort is pleasant, it is not always biological best practice. We have removed the environmental challenges that our bodies were designed to solve. By reintroducing this small control challenge, we are dusting off the machinery of our biology. In conclusion, the journey of the 30-second cold shower is a journey of reclaiming vitality. It is a holistic intervention that costs nothing but a moment of bravery. We have seen how it acts as vascular gymnastics, flexing the arteries and unburdening the heart. We have seen how it summons the immune army, flushing the lymph and boosting white blood cells to ward off illness. We have seen how it extinguishes the fires of inflammation, soothing the aching joints of age. And finally, we have seen how it lights up the brain, chasing away the shadows of depression and sharpening the edges of our intellect. To the senior standing before the shower handle tomorrow morning, remember this: you are not just turning a knob, you are turning a key. You are unlocking a pharmacy within your own body. You are tapping into an ancient reservoir of strength that has been dormant. The water will be cold, yes. The shock will be real. But as you step out, toweling off the droplets, you will feel something that no money can buy. You will feel truly, vibrantly, undeniably alive. This is the gift of the cold. It is a daily reminder that you are still strong, you are still capable, and you are ready for whatever the day may bring. The fountain of youth is not a myth. It is simply a matter of temperature. Turn the handle, take the breath, and step into your strength.